Yes, everybody, welcome back to the XG File. Stephen Howson, Ronaldo Brown. All right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Just warm in here, though.
Do you reckon?
Been warm all day, and you're always the one that complains about how warm it is.
I am, yeah. But upstairs, it's warm.
Yeah.
We've got these big fat heating pipes that kind of run through the ceiling, and they're absolutely, can't touch them, can you?
Yeah, don't know why it gets so warm.
Absolutely redders, yeah. So it's just, we're in one of those old Victorian buildings where they go, heating's on now. Do you know, like it used to be at school, didn't it?
Yeah.
Heating's on now. We'll turn it off in March. Just one of them moves.
It's got no blend, though. It's like, it's two extremes. It's either really, really warm, or as soon as you turn the heating off, it's freezing.
Yeah. Put it this way, upstairs, we've got the aircon on and the windows open. That's green, innit? Anyway, how are you lot doing? Is everybody? Are you having a good day? Are you all right? Did you enjoy the football last night?
Yeah, I did. It was an interesting game, though. Watched PSG City one, like everyone else did. Couldn't have had any more superstars on the pitch, but that's what superstar behaviour mostly, rather than performances.
I saw some absolute gutter press this morning saying, on the back of last night's results, Manchester United hierarchy have changed their opinion on Pochettino. Have they? Really? On one result? Really? And text you? Did they? Before?
No chance.
Shut up, you dick.
No chance. And it's it's one of them. I told you, Carragher mentioned it. Like, it's all right talking about all the shiny toys that Pochettino's got at PSG, but getting all them to play for you must be a whole other job in itself.
On one hand, it must, yeah.
Because Tuchel apparently struggled the exact same thing, and you've seen what he's gone on to do.
I think
Chelsea.
he struggled with a bit more of the politics as well at Paris too.
Apparently Poch has the same issue. He's not really got on with the president too much.
And it's Leonardo as well.
Leonardo, yeah.
So on one hand, yeah, I get it. And do you know what though? I ain't got any sympathy for you. You deal with the cards you got. No. You know what I mean? Like, he probably is in a position where he can't drop Messi no matter what. However, is that any different for who comes in at United? No.
Can't drop Ronaldo.
You're not going to get to drop Ronaldo, and guess what? He ain't going to press like a madman either. So you've got to play with what you've got, and what he's got is an absolute embarrassment of riches. It's like a world-class player in every single position that he's got. We were talking upstairs, weren't we, about like Ander Herrera's a massive miss for United, and he's probably one of the best players that they've got as well. He just offers that some like real honest grit that they don't have in that team.
Always loved Herrera. And when I was watching the game yesterday, I was looking at him and thinking he looks like a 26-year-old version of himself.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was part of him. He's got the United in him. He's going to City at the Etihad. He knows it means a little bit. He knows the kind of speed of the game.
Hey up, wrong one. What happened there, mate?
Yeah. And that's a rarity from him, though.
Yeah, I think they've messed with the settings, haven't they? So we're trying to get the comments on the screen here behind us. Cam's been messing in here while the fan channel have had it, and it don't work how we set it up back in the day. So Will's confused, I think. So we're talking manager candidates for United. Obviously, there's been a little bit of rumours coming out. There is some breaking news, whether you believe it or not, whether I believe it or not, whether you lot believe it or not, and you shouldn't. Erik Ten Hag has just declared himself the next United manager. So, like, expect people to go mental over that. And
I think he's had a bit of a sip this morning.
I think it's just Ten Hag being Ten Hag.
Cantona, he's a bit of a character.
He's a mischief maker, isn't he? So he's just like, say what he wants, absolute off his tits. So, Ten Hag's the new United manager. There you go. Do you think I'll be seeing him in the dugout on Sunday? No, I won't be holding my breath. I don't think he'll be giving a press conference on Friday neither. I did say, as a joke, if we're going full banter era, let's go full banter era. Let's get Erik Ten Hag in. Let's have him just go absolutely mental. Let's have him just be Erik Ten Hag, get on the sideline, wear a tie but not have it done up and just drape it over his shoulders. Let's have him talk absolute mayhem in press conferences. Just like, I mean, he was on Twitter the other day. I think he was on Instagram as well. He's just got his dick out in some play that he's in. Just like whip your old boy out in a press conference. As Joe said, is anyone thirsty?
As funny as entertaining as that would be, that sounds like some sort of fantasy lucid dream almost, though, if anything. Like, but realistically,
if we're going to be in a banter era team, let's make it funny. Because it's not funny at the moment.
We can only, it's not funny at all. We can only do that in a rebuild. You know, like a bit of a... Because that's the big difference between us and Arsenal, I think. Like how Arsenal and United recently have been trying to vie for which is the most banterous club. Definitely Arsenal, by the way.
Them,
yeah.
Just because of the fans.
Just because of the fans. Absolute idiots. But anyway, Have I told you how much I hate them? I literally hate Arsenal more than anything in the world. Hope they get liquidated. Anyway, but it's the fact that like they actually have a team that isn't star-studded. It's got their young players are kind of their driving force. What Lokonga, Smith Rowe, Saka. They could be more viable in terms of going for a little banterous, we'll just see what happens kind of thing. But when you got United with the players that we have at the club and what we're trying to achieve, like Ronaldo, Varane, Sancho, Rashford, Pogba, you can't go for
be a banter
exactly.
Cristiano Ronaldo, like I said to you the other day, right? Cristiano Ronaldo heard the first note of the Europa League theme tune and was like, I don't fucking think so. Give me that ball. So there's not a prayer he's going to end up being in the Europa League. That's just not. It's like in his contract.
It's almost like he's single-handedly not allowed it himself as well in the group stages.
His performance in the Champions League this year have been sensational. He's been so productive.
But it's like, but then again, if you look at it in context, you look at our group, we shouldn't be going in the Europa League out of that group.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Villarreal, Atalanta, and Young Boys. Young Boys should be a given that they should have finished bottom. Got Atalanta who are decent and actually found their feet a little bit. They almost lost to Young Boys, but in Serie A,
you got Atalanta who were
like third or
last
fourth
year's
place.
hipster team, weren't they? They were the team that everyone were like, oh, this is the new thing that it's going to be. They come up all the time, those teams. Years ago, it was Athletic Bilbao. Then you've had Ajax were it for a minute. Dortmund were it for a minute. You've had all of these teams sort of come through and be the new hipster team of choice. Yeah. And then you've got what seems like we're in the Atalanta sort of era.
I think they are third or fourth in Serie A at the moment as well. So they found the feet. Still doing pretty well. But Villarreal, if you know, they're mid-table in the league at the moment. They're struggling to win games. They do a good job drawing games, but they struggle to win them at the moment. So teams like that we should be beaten, and we should have made it. To be fair, if you look at it, we have comfortably qualified. It just hasn't felt convincing.
No, it hasn't felt like it was convincing in the slightest at all. I think it's felt almost the opposite. It's felt like we were very close to ballsing it up multiple times. Get involved in the comments. We are going to sort of answer some of those comments. Mardragon says, watch the Blood Money derby. No chance. I mean, you're going to have to watch it still. Ultimately, you are going to have to watch it. Abhishek says, just saw Cantona saying he's the new manager. Jockey is saying, would be totally up for Cantona. Course. I mean, like, is it going to work? Nah. Do I know what he plays? Nah. Do I care? Nah. Just have it.
So interestingly then, now that we are talking about managers, out of all the manager candidates that you have been hearing, because I don't think you've actually gone out on a limb and said, which one would you most likely want to manage United?
Ten Hag.
I've
been pretty clear on I would love it to be Ten Hag. I would love it to go this way. And we can talk about all of the candidates. We've kind of done a bit of a rundown through all of them. So you've got Pochettino. You got Ragnick. You got Valverde's just popped into the mix from out of nowhere. Brendan Rodgers, Ten Hag, Zidane. It seems like there's been another couple sort of like just thrown in the mixer as well last like 48 hours or so. I saw Jay's tweet last night, which is that we've got more of a shortlist for this job than we did for replacing Sir Alex Ferguson, which is kind of batshit. It's also accurate.
But it's a long list now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hardly a short list now. It's pretty much just writing down managers. My perfect ideal scenario, I've said this a few times, would be Ralf Rangnick coming in as our interim boss, have them getting used to a pressing, playing out system, and then bring Ten Hag in so it's not a culture shock when he comes in. That would be a good move from Manchester United to sort of transition a team through something. Like we've flipped from Louis van Gaal to Jose Mourinho, might as well not been the same sport. And then from Jose Mourinho to what Ole wanted us to do. Again, Mourinho not being in there at all and Solskjaer following Van Gaal might have been smoother. You might have seen the likes of Daley Blind stick around, Memphis Depay stick around. Like some of the players that Mourinho just wasn't having might have been useful, and obviously some of the players that Mourinho brought in, Solskjaer had to get rid of because they weren't fitting his system. Like Lukaku, not gonna press for you, not about his game, certainly not with the timber that he'd managed to put on. Sanchez, again, not gonna press for you. So Louis van Gaal had started to build the team up in this sort of direction Jose was a complete 180 of that direction. Solskjaer was almost a complete 180 of what he was. For us to now try and go a complete 180 again would be ludicrous. So I think you have to try and find someone that's going to keep you going down the path that Solskjaer started going down, which even though he might not have been successful with it, it still resembles a Ralf Rangnick, Ten Hag kind of path. I just think they're probably better, more experienced and more proven at doing it.
Because what's Ragnick doing with himself nowadays? He's sporting director at
Lokomotiv Moscow.
So he leaves that.
unless Putin owns it, I don't think that's something that you're going to struggle to get out of.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Putin owns it.
It might be a struggle. So he leaves that job, becomes interim. Obviously, Ragnick wouldn't be a long-term option anyway. He's quite up there in age. I'm not trying to be ageist, but
Ragnick, 63, I think.
Yeah, but
again, that's perfect for an interim.
He's perfect segue. Exactly, Grandad, perfect segue. As you said, he introduces that kind of going and pressing, kind of defensive philosophy that we need to integrate into the team because we are struggling
with him being one of the original proponents and
pioneered it, didn't he?
Yeah, kind of like the pioneer of gegenpress. I mean, he didn't because it came from Russia.
Yeah,
I think it was Dynamo Kiev, which what I know is Kiev, I know is Ukraine, but I think at the time it was part of the Soviet Union. So relax. As a player, he sort of it's in Das Reboot. There's a whole chapter on Ralf Rangnick and gegenpressing and the origins of it, and he talks about how he was like, why does it feel like they've got 13 players? Like there's always someone on you. Like there's no room anywhere on the pitch. Whichever team he was playing for, it was just like Dresden, Dusseldorf, someone like that. He played a friendly against Dynamo Kiev and just got run ragged and was like, what is that? So he's seen as the inventor of gegenpressing, but clearly he saw it, experienced it on the opposite side of a player. And I'm sure it was someone to do with like Yeshlavin, I think was someone, or Lev Yashin even, was something to do with it. I think. I could be wrong on that.
Nah, but when it comes to what we're trying to suggest about him bringing in that gegenpressing and people buying in, when you look at the managers today and you're looking at the likes of Tuchel and Klopp, these are the two of the best managers in the world right now in terms of what they're contributing with their teams and what they're winning and kind of the crazy statistical stuff that they're coming out with in terms, especially Tuchel and his defensive record at Chelsea. Obviously, the kind of helter-skelter style that Liverpool have played the past few years. These were all managers that were heavily influenced by the likes of Ragnick.
Yeah.
So that gives him a fair amount of pedigree anyway. But what I always talk to you about is it's all right having that philosophy of everyone pressing, everyone helping out the nearest man next to him. It's a whole other thing as a manager is getting players to buy in and getting superstars to buy into it, because I know like there's this whole thing where there's argument about people acting as if Pep and Klopp have created or invented pressing. That's not what people are exactly saying. It's just the fact what impresses me the most as knowing that someone that's played himself is the fact that these have managed to get players with egos, with star-studded quality and kind of heavy kind of marketing and, you know, that kind of stuff that comes along with it. It's the fact that they've got these players to buy into it and to kind of work hard and not just be a luxury player. Because I'm looking at the likes of Bernardo Silva and what he's done in the past 2 years. He was never, ever that kind of player. And that is what impresses me the most, because I think when you come and manage for a big club, part of it's tactics, but part of it is managing players and getting guys that think a lot of themselves to actually be a little bit more kind of helping the other guy next to him and not thinking about themselves and thinking more about the team rather than an individual.
When a player does think about the team, it elevates them as an individual. It's such a weird dichotomy. It's like, if you're lazy and you don't run, you literally look worse. However, if you help the team and you put your team above yourself, you look better for doing that. And I wonder if there's something about, he does have this, whether or not you correctly attribute it to him or not, he does have this sort of status as the guy who invented gegenpressing. I wonder if going to the source of that gives him some reverence when talking to United. Can he explain it in a simpler term than a more modern manager that's only picked it up in the last 6 months? And you got to remember that for some reason Klopp and Pep seem to have just been anointed with the fact that they invented it in England or they proved it in England. Both Tiki-Taka, which was done by Norwich City in the 90s, by the way, in England. very successfully. They pushed United for the title in 1993, playing possession-based football on the floor, and they were very, very good at it. And they played a high line. United destroyed them playing counter-attacking football. United played three wingers and played Cantona in like a quarterback role. It's one of the most tactically interesting games I've ever seen. United beat Norwich at Carrow Road with three counter-attacking goals. We played three wingers. We literally played three wingers. So they would double up a winger on one side, or they would unload him down the centre. We played Kanchelskis, Sharp and Giggs as three wingers, and Cantona sat off in this kind of like number 10 quarterback role where he would put balls into the channel, and then we played a midfield too, so it probably looks a hell of a lot like a 4-2-3-1. But we played, I think it was McLaren Ince, and all they did was just chase back, win it, pass it Cantona bang it into the channel for one of those speedy wingers to get on the end of, and we fucking obliterated Norwich. Norwich played tiki-taka. Not many people will tell you about that, but they did. And then you got to think that pressing. Now, one of the fucking most amazing things about fucking being mates with Rio and doing that show with him, he put stuff into our group all the time. He was watching MUTV the other day, I think it was from 2009, and he was showing the press that United was doing. He didn't call it a press then, so it never really got attributed to it, but it was a fucking brilliant press. And who's in that? Not Berbatov, obviously, but I think it was like Park, Rooney, Ronaldo was the forward three or something like that. Absolutely mullering someone. I think it was Arsenal. Just mullering Arsenal with a press. Just completely just running through them. Absolutely fucking sensational stuff. So you go, Fergie managed to get people into the press. But I know that's part of
Fergie,
the United way.
But that's exactly the point.
Don't let someone get their head up and take a second touch. That's always be there ready to hit them early on the. Don't let someone saunter around the pitch in the ball. They'd call it putting him under pressure or get on his touch. They never called it pressing because that wasn't necessarily what you did, and they might not have done, formational pressing, but it was always about, can you put him under pressure? Can you make sure you put the opposition under pressure? No one comes to Old Trafford and just gets to play out. You fucking get on him.
Isn't that part of a lot of the praise that Fergie gets? It's the fact that he had that kind of attitude and culture around United with the players that he did have. And he had players, he didn't have any passengers, he didn't have any players that were luxury. He had integrated players like Darren Fletcher and Ji-Sung Park and players that...
There was always a workhorse.
There was always a workhorse because he knew how important they were. And obviously when you talk about like the verbiage of like pressing, I think since the beginning of time in football, there's probably always been an opposition player closing down another opposition player. They probably just didn't get a name attributed to it like yourself.
They called it hunting football in the 70s.
Yeah.
Hunting football, because that's kind of what it represents, isn't it?
Isn't the new modern day pressing not just generally the basicness of closing the player down? I think it's just people doing that little 5-second rule thing of once you've lost possession. Because what they do say is
when you can't sprint for 90 minutes, can you?
You can't. So you're meant to be focused. When it's meant to be like a focused press. When you are actually defending, and you're defending for a while and then you nick the ball back, you're not always in the best position to go forward. That is what makes the likes of gegenpressing or pressing when you've just lost the ball so effective. I know it's surprising that most teams don't actually try and do it, even though it is something difficult to do because if it goes wrong, it leaves you quite exposed. But if you're sitting back in two banks of four or you're chasing after players and then you win the ball back, usually you find that your formation or your position of your players are quite condensed in an area. And you're not always in the greatest place to get out. So that was what makes the likes of pressing when you've just lost the ball so effective. I think that's just generally the kind of modern way they've kind of worded it in terms of making it the gegenpressing. But I think hunting football...
The way the game's changed in a certain way as well. Yeah. Let's say you take it back to the 70s, you take it back to poorer surfaces, you take it back to different balls, different boots, different sort of physicality and tackles and things like that. You'd have had a lot more going to ground in tackles and things like that. So a lot of modern day pressing is on your feet, he's chasing, he's maybe trying to cut corners and force someone into a certain area. You might not have done that in the past because you might have just gone through the fucker. Hit him from behind, nailed him. There'd be free kicks, there'd be yellow cards down. There might not even be a foul half the time back in the day. You've also got the surface makes a massive difference, so defenders can pivot, they can play a ball, they can switch the play. Goalkeepers are becoming better with their feet, something Dutch goalkeepers have always had, but goalkeepers are becoming better with their feet, so you can include the goalkeeper to help you play out and and sort of evade that press. And because people are more adept now at that passing game, they understand keeping hold of the ball is both a defensive asset and an offensive asset. They don't just want to fucking smosh it into the channel and have a big number 9, because they don't really exist in a massive scale at the moment. Like a big number 9 that's going to fight for a ball, win a second ball, hurt a centre half, put pressure on a centre half, because you haven't got that sort of Alan Shearer archetype of a number 9 that'll fight for everything if you just stick it in an area for him. Number 9s might be a little bit smaller, they might be a little nippier, they might be more agile, more skillful, because the nature of the players has changed to a large degree. It's just not as effective. Like, if United try and play it long to Ronaldo, he can win it in the air because he's a fantastic header, but does he win in the air with his back to goal? Not really. It's not really his game. He attacks things fantastically well, but you don't see him like holding off an entire back line and sinking down onto his haunches.
He's not a target man, is he?
You don't see him doing that. You don't see him really sort of battling for those kind of balls in the air. You don't see him going up for those duels. The nature of the game has changed in such a way. Also, you don't really see your out-and-out wingers that'll get to the byline and just fucking bang one in for that number 9 in the centre of the box. So the game's evolved in certain ways. It might flip back to that. There might be a team that comes out and has just recruited a pair of 6'6" forwards that are both quick, athletic, aggressive, and they might go, fuck it, yeah, let's get some crosses. Let's get like a pair of Trents on each side as winger and fullback and just be spamming balls into them.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be very effective, and then it'll get copycatted because that's how it works. Other people will try and find strikers that replicate that, and it's the same old. Like, you'll have one team comes out with something extremely effective, and then you have people copycat that and antidote that. So there's always the two things kind of come out, and it'll go back round to 4-4-2 and that eventually as well. Yeah, it'll always come back.
Do you know what's interesting about the fix that we're looking for with Manchester United? A lot of the issues are pretty much the only issues is like halfway line and back. It's like going forward. The only issue we really have isn't scoring goals. United haven't really had an issue scoring goals this season. We haven't had an issue for the past 18 months scoring goals. We're always a threat. We've got too much attacking talent. We're always going to be dangerous. We're always going to score goals. The reason why we're losing games is because we're giving teams head starts, or we're putting a lot of pressure on our forward players by having to score more than one a game to win a game or to be on form, because we're always going to concede.
Chelsea conceded 24 in
last 50. Yeah.
I mean, how many of United scored this
and
season?
5 of those, you said 5 of those goals have come against West Brom in some freak game at Stamford Bridge. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been 19. That's 19 in 49. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous.
United scored 11 in a week the other week.
Conceded
11 in a week.
That's what I mean. So what kind of pressure do you put on the forward players when you do that? But I think when we complain about going forward, it's usually just playing out from the back, putting ourselves under pressure, not having the cohesive patterns because of our 2 DMs.
Well, I think we struggle playing out, and I think we struggle moving it through the thirds. I think once we get into the final third, we're quite deadly. I did a video with Marum for the fan channel yesterday, like right here against this TV. We was looking at the effectiveness of Jadon Sancho in the final third, what he offers. The one thing data doesn't show you, because it doesn't ever really pick up opposition defence positions. Yeah. It can't check for things that aren't actioned, can it? So it'll never tell you Maguire was out of position, provably. That's just opinion and experience is telling you that he was in the wrong spot. But one of the things that happens, I think, when you play Sancho versus when you play either a Greenwood or even an inverted Rashford on the right-hand side, is the defence all stacks into one side. And if you've got 4 players from the edge of the table to here, you're talking 8 inches or comparatively 2 metres or so between them if it's on a football pitch. Whereas if you have a winger that comes and stands out here, the distance to mark them now is 12 inches, 3 metres versus whatever. And that's Ronaldo having someone 2 metres away from him and having someone 3 metres away from him is the difference between him snatching at a shot and finishing a shot, I think.
And you know what's the huge difference for United, especially when you've seen the past couple of games when Sancho looked a little bit sharper and he looked better on the right wing when it comes to the balance of the team. Obviously, there's been a lot of data shown with this in terms of Wan-Bissaka's attacking position, his attacking capabilities, is that when you've got the left side, when you had that partnership of Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford, it works well because Luke Shaw's a player that just wants to go forward. That's usually what he prefers and what he works best. And it works best because you've got Rashford on the right, on the left, who likes to cut inside. He can go on the out, and it provides. But when he goes inside, more often than not, it provides space for an attacking left back.
Correct.
When you haven't got a natural right winger that likes to hug the touchline on the right side for United, when you've got Wan-Bissaka as a right back, it doesn't work because Wan-Bissaka doesn't really want to go forward, and when he does, he isn't comfortable. So the issue is when you've got Greenwood and Wan-Bissaka on one side, Greenwood wants to come inside because he's left-footed, doesn't he? Comes inside.
Or he's already inside because he likes to hover around the back end of the
And
knee.
then what's your outlet then? It's Wan-Bissaka, who's not great.
Yeah.
So exactly. That's why
exactly
you need... See the difference United play sometimes in terms of being able when Sancho's been on the right, when we actually make it work. It's because Sancho doesn't need to come inside because if he does, our only outlet's Wan-Bissaka.
Did you see the pass map from the other night?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? The pass map
No, I've
from
not
the other
seen
night. I wish you could throw it on the TV, actually.
Yeah.
I've only just thought of it right now. It's a midfield three. It's a 6 and 2/8 with great spacing off each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I could finish to that, mate. Like, it's a little bit lopsided
Had a bit of
still
teething
because
pains, though, didn't it?
Ronaldo and Martial are both kind of in that left channel. But there's a perfect triangle, nicely evenly spaced in the centre. McTominay, Fred and Van der Beek. I fucking love that shit. We're going to cut out for us. Look, before we get into going through what we think of the rest of the targets, or actually all of the targets, Ralf Rangnick aside, we are sponsored by Manscaped for this one. So let's have a look at that. It's holiday season, which I think means Christmas in England. And that means stockings are to be stuffed and elves are to be cuffed. What? Yeah, me either. And that's today's sponsor. Manscaped has gone global with the tools to guarantee you will score under the tree and the mistletoe. Manscaped is the leader in men's below-the-waist grooming, and they have served more than 4 million men worldwide. And if my math's correct, that's almost 8 million balls. Because not everyone's got a full set, you know. So you get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code XG20. Listen, it's Christmas time. You're not going to go to the shops, are you? That's absolute savagery. You're not going to the shops because that's just ludicrous. Don't go to the shops. Don't waste your time. Just go online, get all your shopping done. Manscaped, Amazon, whoever delivers, that's where you want to be going. Buy someone their Christmas present, but go to manscaped.com, get that one. XG20 is the code, but it's also Black Friday, so you might be able to get an extra bit off as well, 25% off because it's Black Friday. Obviously, it's all online. You don't need to do anything. You can even just answer the door to the postman with your big hairy bush hanging out. Or if you have got a nicely trimmed bush, you can answer it with your nicely trimmed bush, and you can be buying it for someone who has got a big bush. So there you go. Manscaped, XG20, manscaped.com. Check the link in the description, or just go to manscaped.com, the code XG20. Just save yourself the ball bust. Literally.
They love a bargain, don't they?
They love a bargain. Righty then, let's have a look at the
Some of
possible
gaffers.
candidates, and also get your comments in as well, get your questions in, and we will reply to some of those shortly. Where was it? So, Pochettino. Obviously, there was some talk, which I'm not buying. I'm not sure the hierarchy at United got on the text to random unnamed journalists and was like, yeah, not interested in Poch anymore after watching that shit show last night. I don't think that happened. That just feels like conveniently not going to get questioned if a journalist says it, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So
It's so abundantly clear that he wants to come United, though.
yeah,
It's all he's ever wanted. And obviously, you heard that thing is a big fan in his corner, isn't he? Fergie.
I think, and as much as people go, Fergie don't actually, I know he's a director of the club, but I don't think he actually has major
He
day-to-day input at the moment. That might be the case, but you can't tell me that he doesn't have influence. There's not if Fergie goes, not having him, whoever that might be, guess what? We ain't having him. I think he'll have a veto on some pretty big decisions, and I think they'll also respect his advice, and they should, for anyone that he quite fancies as well.
If anyone questions him, I have borderline the biggest stand in this pitch. Yeah, Old Trafford.
Yeah. Come here. See that? What does that say?
The Sir Alex Ferguson.
Thank you very much. So, what's your thoughts on? I think people know my thoughts on Pochettino. I did a video saying why I don't want Pochettino in February 2020. I might just re-release it because it's not changed.
I'm a bit in between. It's like I'm not the biggest fan of Poch, but I'm not. He's basically his arch nemesis, like you are. But I think with the squad we've got, I think Poch has done enough in his managerial period to show that he does have some of the abilities to probably come in and have a go at it. But personally, I think there's better options out there for a permanent manager. I know he did a decent job at Southampton, and it led to the progression of him becoming a Spurs manager, and he made Spurs relevant to an extent. He brought him to a Champions League final. I'm not going to lie to you, bringing Tottenham Hotspur to a Champions League final is a fucking huge accomplishment. I'm not going to lie, it's Tottenham Hotspur. It's Tottenham Hotspur.
Spurs haven't spent some serious cash. The other thing as well is I get told all the time, he spent no money at Spurs. Well, for that, he spent 300 million. He also signed 27 players. That's a squad worth of people.
But isn't that... You'll be hard to find... Not you'll be hard. The Manscaped ad's over. I mean... No, it'll be hard to find, a manager or a team that has made it to the Champions League final with not having a significant net spend within the 2 years prior to it. Because it's the elite of the elite in terms of competition. And usually to get there, you're going to have a star-studded team of some sort, a relatively big wage bill, and good players to get there.
I saw some shit the other day, and the figures were wrong, because I am bitter enough to go and do the fucking maths on it as well, which is like Ollie had spent the most of any manager since his appointment, and I was like, that doesn't feel true, especially with what City did this summer.
He's in the ballpark.
Yeah, he is, but it's not true. It's Pep, and it's Pep by a sizable amount as well, and they had Pep spending 7 million less than him, but I think that wherever they got their numbers from was skewed somehow.
Who did these numbers?
ESPN, who famously love United. So what Pep had spent eliminates what Pep had spent in his first 2 years as manager at City as well, which is kind of like, this is what has been spent since Ollie came in, but like, it's not relevant, is it? Because, are you allowed to say, no players that were signed outside of that are allowed to play? It's not how it works.
So you're saying it's not relevant?
No, I don't think it's
But
relevant.
it's relevant in criticising Poch's tenure at Tottenham for spending 300 million.
No, I'm all about the truth, Ronaldo. So people say he spent nothing, and you go, well, that's not true. He spent 300 million, which is only slightly less than what Ollie spent in his tenure with inflation. Plus, he signed 27 players. Ollie's not signed anywhere near that. And that, for me, that's the problem, is that United have spent massive money on a handful of players. £80 million and £75 million respectively for Sancho and Maguire. It's £150 million.
The only thing is, though, which will go down on Poch, and he's on Poch's resume, is that he got him closest that they've ever been in a long, long time. Well, my lifetime anyway, to a Premier League title.
My lifetime.
Yeah. He's also got him to a Champions League final, and I will go as far as to say, I'm not sure Tottenham may ever get to the Champions League final ever again. Quote me on this. In the next 50 years. And he'll have that on his resume. And I'm baffled to the fact that he actually managed to achieve that. And I think he deserves a large amount of credit for doing that. And personally, as I've said, I think he's a decent manager with decent pedigree, and he's done decent things. But I personally think there's better options out there.
Does Solskjaer's last 6 months and his last 6 months, because weren't they sacked around about the same time?
Who? Solskjaer and Poch?
Yeah, when he left Tottenham. Around about this time of year, wasn't it?
But
so is there something in losing that final that you maybe not were United were expected to win, Tottenham weren't, but losing that final, the decline has been similar, hasn't it? From that peak of getting to the final, it's been similar.
It has been. But the only issue people argue then is Tottenham's aspirations and United's aspirations aren't comparable.
They're not, no. And
the expectations are a little bit different.
So if you crumbled under the pressure of doing it with Tottenham, he's showing that he can't handle the pressure at PSG for whatever reason. That might be infighting, this, that, and the other. But that makes me question his ability to handle the pressure. It does, right? Right or wrong, it does. I do question his ability to handle the pressure. So the way it's going and gone at PSG doesn't show me a winner. It doesn't. He's had arguably the best PSG team. Why is he not doing better with it?
Because of that, what we've described, I think it's just a team full of star-studded players, but and a couple of mercenaries. I think you've got Mbappe, who's got one foot out the door and half his brain out the door. In terms of thinking about, he probably goes to bed every night with dreams of scoring at the Bernabeu.
Hasn't he got like 14 goals in his last 11 games?
Yeah, but he's performing.
So he's phoning it in and doing
Yeah.
more than a goal game. All right, cool. Okay, carry on.
No, he's not. Now I'm talking. I'm talking about how he's generally come across.
Skeptical hippo face here, but
Nah, I'm generally talking about I think I'm not really been watching PSG that much, but in terms of what's been said in the media in terms of his thought process, in terms of wanting to stay at PSG and wanting to leave, he might be performing still, but I think there's part of that in terms of them being bigger than him. Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi being probably bigger than Poch within the team. And then you've got the likes of Ramos and egos like that not been playing yet. I don't think you could. It's the fact that who's been able to actually win what they should have won with PSG since they've become this oil money
all they've not
squad.
won is the Champions League.
Yeah.
And like it or lump it, there's an element of luck here. And the best team in Europe does not always win the Champions League. It doesn't. United probably should have picked up another couple. 2001 for sure. I think we should have won one. Possibly even 97. I think we were worthy of winning one. Obviously, we got hampered by the foreigner rule early doors, but even latterly, like United, 09 and 11, we came up against Barcelona and were tated. 2010, we went out. I think it was 2010. Went out to Bayern Munich. Really unfortunate circumstances. The best team in Porto were not the best team in Europe when they won it. Liverpool were not the best team in Europe when they won it in 2005. Maybe that's a different story when they won it a couple of years ago. They were certainly up there. They were certainly one of the 5, I would say, that should be competing for it. The best team does not always... I mean, Chelsea, when they won it in 2012, were not... I mean, they were the 6th best team in England. They were not the best team in Europe.
I don't... But to me, I think it's very hard to win Champions League or to make the final without beating some very, very, very good teams.
You can get to a quarter-final by having a Europa League run. You really can. But quarter-finals onwards, rarely does it has happened, but rarely does a team get to the quarter-final and beyond. The semi-finals, you're not really getting an easy run. There's, especially now, the expanded Champions League format, you're not really getting an easy draw in a semi-final no more. That doesn't exist. So you've had to beat someone. But you can beat one team. You don't even have to beat them. You could draw favourably twice and be through. So you can ride your luck a little bit, especially if you've got teams competing on multiple fronts and you've already kind of tossed it off a little bit. You can throw all your eggs in the Wednesday night basket, can't you? And you can get a bit more of a better result because the travel, United have had it where we've had just like what feels like 10 finals in the bounce. Every game is an absolute must-win. Going for Wednesday night, you've got a massive game. Weekend, you've got Arsenal. Wednesday night, you're back in the Champions League, it's Roma or whatever it is. And then at weekend again, you've got Chelsea. And you're just going through an absolute ringer. And you love it as a fan because it's just monster game after monster game after monster game. But the requirements of managing a squad through that, there's no coincidence that we've had some titles won in England lately. Before this little period of dominance by City, who, let's be honest, have got 2 11s. Yeah. Prior to that little dominant period, people who'd won the league were people who were not in Europe, Chelsea and Leicester. There's something in that. And there's something in the teams that are going... Liverpool, when they won the league, completely phoned in Europe. There's a difficulty to go all the way in those things.
I think people can attribute it being a little bit more difficult being in the Europa League. People kind of acknowledge the Europa League having a bit of an adverse effect on league form because you've got that Thursday night, Saturday turnaround, which is very, very tight.
Thursday, Sunday.
So yeah, Thursday, Sunday.
I don't see what the difference is, and you get some mad ones as well.
I'm agreeing with you because people talk about the Europa League having a bit of an impact on. Because I think Arsenal fans have been saying that they think their Europa League run of the last 3-4 years
plausible.
It's been a large contributor to why they've struggled so much in the league. But people don't mention that with the Champions League. But then again, people will say, because the Champions League are the creme de la creme in terms of squads. Champions League teams are less affected because they've got a bigger... Yeah.
Of the Champions League teams are a little bit more
deeper.
suited. Like when did Newcastle get in there under Pardew and then came like 17th the next season? And Burnley got in there and just died, nearly got relegated. Like, I think that you as a football team, when you're only playing Saturday,
it's not affecting West Ham at the moment.
Saturday. Not at the moment. Yeah. You'll see. Let's see if they finish fourth and go the distance in Europa.
I can very much see what I see an impending nosedive of some sort at some point in the season from West Ham. Generally because...
But if you're like, your Newcastles or people that have like risen above... Wolves have done it a couple of times, haven't they, where they've ended up in Europa and then bombed it next season because they've... I think those squads are good enough to compete week in, week out in the Premier League, but weren't good enough to compete week in, week out in the Premier League, maintaining that sort of form and also this extra game and the travel involved. And not only that, and the thing that I think gets... missed a lot of the times. When Conte came into Chelsea, they didn't have European football. So you're a new manager, as there is 75% of the time in the Premier League, there's a new manager for every team, 75% of the teams. If you've not got European football, your lads can come in and do recovery on Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you could be working on patterns of play that are going to represent what your team's going to play for the coming season. Friday, do specific stuff for the opposition that you've got on Saturday. Saturday, go out and put in a good performance. Whereas, let's say United are playing, let's say it's Brentford, right? Brentford have got a defined style of play. It relies on movement and pressing and work rate and these sorts of things. And they can focus on those things Monday to Friday. They're playing United this weekend. United should smash them, yeah? Premier League giant, been around forever, squad's worth $1 billion, should absolutely destroy them, right? But Wednesday night, United was in fucking Bergamo playing Atalanta. So United only got back to England at 4 a.m. Thursday morning. They came in the afternoon on a Thursday, did a recovery session. Friday, they started having a look at what Atalanta might be like. Brentford, sorry, yeah. They do a half-day session on figuring out what Brentford are going to do, and then they go and play them on a Saturday. Those are the things that it's still human beings that are playing football, regardless of how much you pay them. Those are the things which I think massively affect teams' abilities when they're not quite firing on all cylinders. City, Chelsea, weirdly, Liverpool are riding this without the depth. I think they're using a lot of their youngsters as depth. And I was going to say a lot of variables in that is quite often. I don't think teams are playing their strongest teams midweek anyway. Yeah. So there's a little bit of rotation. The Champions League group, for the most part, has become relatively easy. This year's is a bit of a mad one. But I look at some of them groups. Some of them groups are a bit shit. But also, English teams top every single group they're in. Yeah. City, Chelsea, Liverpool, United are top of every group.
Where do City, Chelsea, United and Liverpool kind of rank, though, in terms of finances? When it comes in Europe?
They'll all be in the top 10.
Because remember when there was this little bit of... It was a short period of time when there was a bit of a... it was borderline monopoly going on with English teams in the Champions League, where it was basically dominating. It might have been just a 2-3 year period.
It's not. Well, over a 10-year period from 2005, there was a 10-year period where there was 10 English teams in a final. Yeah. No, I think 2010 there wasn't an English team in the final, or 2013 there wasn't an English team in the final, but there'd been 2 English teams in a final in 2008.
Because who are the 4 best teams in Europe right now?
Right now?
3 of them are English.
There's always Bayern. They're always a threat.
It's Bayern, Chelsea, Liverpool and City.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair.
So that should be the quarter-final, but might not be.
Semis.
Yeah,
but that's what we also saw. Yeah. We also saw 2 and 3 English teams in... There was 3 English teams in the semi-final of the Champions League for 2 or 3 years on the bounce. Yeah. This is around about the time that United won it. Last. So yeah, that's when you know English football was strong. I think we're in a similar sort of vein again. Like, you got to go to the bottom half of the table. Like, you look at Leeds, for example. they're playing with a lot of championship players. He's got a couple of superstars in there that would work anywhere in the world. There's a lot of championship players in that team.
Yeah.
But he's a world-class manager in that as well. And these are a bottom-half Premier League team. You've got Arsenal, let's be honest, they're a slap-bang mid-table at best team, 8th to 10th, realistically. They've got a seriously weighed-in squad. They've spent some serious cash on that squad, even if it doesn't always play like Pepe or whatever. But they're a mid-table team. So this is what makes English football strong.
Because it's weird.
Wolves' squad is, it might be an incubator for Portuguese talent for George Mendes.
Yeah.
But that midfield is sick.
That's a decent team. I think they're doing decently well at the moment in the league. Aren't they around 6th place? Yeah, they've been fairly strong, but I don't know. It's an interesting one, and I think this kind of competition within the Premier League is what helps shape the top teams in terms of not taking games for granted and having to perform at an elite level all the time, not going into the weekend able to down tool and beat a team 5-0 with the likes of Bayern, and that can do sometimes on some weeks, and that can actually help you going into the big games against big teams. But so what we're talking about is obviously managers.
So the other ones that you got to consider, obviously, I mentioned Ten Hag, Ragnick would be my sort of roll through, and I've got a sneaky suspicion I can pull that off.
I'm in agreement with you though. I've got the exact same theory of would love for it to be interim Ragnick. And
Valverde's name got thrown into the mix.
Got booted.
I mean, I don't know. Him and Enrique both had winning spells at Barcelona.
Yeah, he won 2 La Ligas there, innit? So
and got booted with a quickness. I don't know enough on the circumstances of why they lost the jobs there.
I think Valverde, when I was looking at it, got booted just for having basically a 2-month spell that was below par, and in Barcelona were like, see you in a bit. Do you know, that's being big managers at big clubs like that, especially clubs that have very to little no patience whatsoever. And he wants success, and wants success now, and he wants success all the time. That's kind of how they play it. He had a really, really good tenure. He was winning things. He was doing what he was supposed to do. Just had a spell where he weren't winning games and he weren't performing, and then it went on for 5 to 10 games, and then he just basically said, "In a bit."
You think there's any point pursuing Zidane? It feels like he's got less interest.
You don't want someone coming in being half-assed, do you?
No. I mean, like, one thing that you could never deny with Solskjaer is he was at his biggest job he would ever get. He knew, and you knew. A bit like Fergie at times. You knew Fergie was never going to run off elsewhere. He's here. This is it. This is the top of the mountain for him. And you knew he loved the club. If Zidane came, like I said, is his heart in it? It clearly isn't in it, because he's basically been offered that job through the press.
Yeah, I know, but the issue is...
And not pick the phone up.
Nah, but I know what you're talking about with the heart, with Ollie, and that's all well and good, and it plays a slight factor. But the thing with United is Manchester United Football Club is not meant to be sentiment FC. I know you want a manager to come in and have some sort of... You want the heart to be in it, obviously. But you want results. It's a results business, and results is basically what is eluding Manchester United at the moment in terms of silverware and success. So that's what we need to be thinking about, because what you mentioned with Ollie knowing it was the biggest job he was ever going to get, I fully agree with that. But that's partly an issue, though, because then you've got that whole thing of, was he overwhelmed at points? Was he...
Maybe he was overwhelmed in terms of ability, but I don't think he was overwhelmed in terms of personality. I think in playing here, he knew the size of the job, he knew the size of the club, and I think because he's in the fabric of the club, I think he managed those things well. And there was there's videos of him going around hugging a fan after he was fired. There's videos of him in the middle of getting all sorts of abuse online, being the last person out of a stadium signing stuff. He is United through and through, and no one will ever take that away from him. The guy was a legend before he finished playing. He was a legend after he finished playing. He's still a Manchester United legend. It just didn't work out for him as manager. I wonder if you bring someone in like Ten Hag in, is he always going to have that desire to manage Holland or go back to Ajax? maybe complete the Champions League win that he never got, or does he see Manchester United as somewhere he can build a legacy? I don't know enough about him.
I don't think Ten Hag comes into the Manchester United job looking at it as a stepping stone to manage Holland. I don't think, just because you've heard this thing with Zidane in France, I don't think managers are looking at international jobs as some sort of, an international football as some sort of lucrative goal they aspire to get to, and they want to go through club football to get there. I'm not sure that's the case, especially with, because I think your theory of not being sure, not knowing enough about him and whether he'd have his heart in the club or whether he's looking at the Holland job, I think you're showing your little, I don't know if it's bias or opinion against that short-termism that you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want short-termism.
But if Ten Hag's here for what, 6-7 years and has a lot of success and then goes manages Holland, good luck to him. Thanks for the success you had. Great. I don't need to be looking at it as, oh, you need to stay here for 15-20 years like Wenger and Fergie, because I've come down to it and just come to the thought process of them times are over.
I disagree though.
I honestly think that is, I've told you time and time again, I think football's evolved, it's moved on, and I think that kind of managerial stay at clubs it was an anomaly anyway when he did it, but I think it's even going to be more an anomaly now. You've got the likes, Pep has absolutely no reason to ever leave City with the success that he's constantly having there. But he's seeing it as basically saying this could be his last year or next. He just wants to move on. That's how everything's fast moving. That's just how managers are behaving these days. I'm not in the thought process of thinking I want a manager that's just going to stay here for 15 years and he has to have some sort of United DNA and love for the club. If Ten Hag did come in for 6 and 7 years, won what we want to see him win, Champions Leagues, and then he leaves and manages Holland, as I said, I'll say good luck to him and thank you for the success, and then we move on and we try and find someone else. I'm not saying you have to go through that Chelsea model of firing a manager every 18 months, but that works for them. Not saying it necessarily would work for us, but you can find a middle ground of some sort.
Yeah, but I would. I mean, people said you couldn't have Busby after Busby, and we emulated that with Sir Alex, right? They'd said that all the way through the 70s. You're wasting your time trying to find a long-term manager, and that's why we went through, from O'Farrell and Sexton and Atkinson and all the rest of that sort of stuff. And they said it'll never happen again. Football has evolved. They said this then. They said this after the Busby Babes happened. You're never going to bring through 4, 5, 6 players at once. You're never going to do that. We did it. We did both of those things under Sir Alex. They're hard to do. They are anomalies. But guess what? So's winning a Champions League. Everything about elite sport is hard to do. That doesn't mean that you ever stop looking for what the right thing to do is. And the right thing to do would be to find another guy. Now, Sir Matt Busby had no connection to Manchester United except he played for Manchester City, right? When he joined in 1945. When Sir Alex Ferguson came, the only relationship he had with United is that he helped us sign Gordon Strachan at some point. He had no relationship here. He had no United DNA. He had nothing about him. It's just that his sort of philosophies kind of aligned with what Manchester United were. We were a sleeping giant at the time. Ten Hag, as far as I'm aware, didn't have United fucking pillowcases growing up. I don't know if he supported United. The only link to United he might have is that his current boss won the Champions League with us. That might be the only connection he's got with us. But from the outside looking in at him and not knowing him deeply, I look at how he plays football. I look at the things he sort of stands for as a manager with his playing philosophy, his recruitment philosophies, and I say that's a man I can see managing Manchester United. And I would love him to be given the structure and opportunity to be able to implement an attempt at replicating what Sir Matt did and what Sir Alex did. And I don't think people are honest with themselves if they think that Manchester United can replicate a Real Madrid or a Chelsea model, because every year we're dealing with £100 million worth of debt refinancing that those clubs would spend on an extra player. I mean, we was going through the Chelsea squad yesterday looking at like what their potential side could be for this week. Their bench Tuesday night is about the third best 11 in the league.
We looked at Chelsea's squad. I honestly would go as far as saying Chelsea's squad stronger than City's and has more in depth.
Possible.
You say City has 2 11s. Chelsea more than have 2 11s. They have 2 11s and subs. It's crazy looking at their squad if you actually look deep into it. especially with the youth players they've brought in, because I know we talked about the fact that they could be starting 5 academy graduates against United on a weekend, and that's a club that's known for big money transfers.
For not doing that.
For not
Who's
doing
the academy graduates? Be Reece James, Hudson-Odoi.
Trevor Chalobah, Mason Mount. Who was the other one? I can't think of it on my head, but we was counting it yesterday. It was 5. Loftus-Cheek.
Loftus-Cheek's going to be in line for a start.
Because Kante's injured. And he's been playing well when he's come. But that's crazy to think, especially with a team. But then again, we talk about their kind of Chelsea and how they operate within London with their academy system. It's like all the best players in London go to Chelsea.
Yeah, they pay 16-year-olds $10,000 a week. That's not it right.
They have a bit of a monopoly going on.
Still done it.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't take that away from him. But you can't truthfully say United are able to replicate what they do. You just can't. Because I know what I want us to as well. I mean, you don't want us to be successful. It's not what I'm saying, is it? And you're literally just choosing to be outraged because you're a dick. Like, United should and do stand for different things to Chelsea.
Yeah.
And it's not that we've not spent money, because we have spent money. But you got to remember, ours isn't coming down an oil pipeline. Ours is coming through what we've made ourselves.
Yeah.
And some of you might not see a difference in that, but there's a difference in that. And I would rather be who we are and own it than, the plaything of a sports washing nation.
Nah, it's just annoying because what we've been talking about now since 2017, what's eluded us? It's silverware, trophy, success, stability. What Chelsea definitely don't have is stability, but what they have been in the last 20 years is the most successful team in England. And the way that they've gone about it, you might not necessarily agree with, but it might just be a show of the times in terms of football.
It might be,
now.
but then again, there was also Leeds was successful for a massive period in the 70s. Liverpool was successful for a period in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, there are cycles, and the problem is with the unlimited money pot that City have seemingly got, the unlimited money pot Chelsea have seemingly got, and a new player has just entered the game in Newcastle and the Saudi whatever investment fund.
They'll eventually get there.
Yeah, you might as well put a bet on Newcastle win the league in the next 15 years, because they will. They absolutely will. Which means I think anyone that buys an English football club at the moment is mental, because the amount of it's going to be. I reckon it'd be easier to go to Italy, buy any club in the top 5 divisions of Italy, and win the Champions League with them before it would be to win with a team in the bottom 10 of England. Because the competition at the top end of English football is fucking wild at the moment. Like I just said, you got 3 of the best teams of the 4 best teams in the world are in England. And then the gatekeepers, which I'd put United in at the moment, we kind of are still a bit of a gatekeeper to that crown. Spurs. Everton's 11's a joke. You know what I mean? Everton, if you put Everton in European football, they're not the shittest team in Europe. Your Spurs, your Evertons, West Ham out of nowhere doing bits. Like, these would be tasty teams that a lot of European football would really struggle to deal with.
Even the gaps widening, like between top end talent in England and like the rest. Because I don't know, because you get these
since
little,
the inception of the Champions League, I remember when United played Honved, and I remember everybody shitting it about playing Honved. I think we beat them 3-2 away, green and gold kit. Look it up. It'd been 93-94 season. And I remember people shitting it about playing Honved away. And then obviously you had your big games, your AC Milans and your Barcelonas and people like that. And of course you was nervous in those games. But even your Montpelliers and Legia Warsaws, like, you shit it against playing those teams because the playing field was just more even. They were stronger. Red Star Belgrade won the Champions League in 1991. We played them in the European Super Cup 1991. They had the pick of all of the players in that region. They were a fucking top side. Red Star Belgrade don't get a sniff of being Champions League winners now.
Exactly. But
it's all been distilled right to the very top.
But I was thinking, is that the same thing within England? Because I know we get these little breakouts from teams like Brentford and Sheffield United, but I feel like a lot of the time when Championship teams are getting promoted these days, they are more than definitely going to go back down, just because they come up and then you've got the rising level of teams that are already within the Premier League and the money, and they can't compete.
I don't think it's gonna go anywhere backwards. I only think it's gonna persist like this. I mean, we're not gonna name names, Ronaldo, but we were talking about some players that could end up playing for Paddock. Honestly, mental.
Yeah,
literally mental. and we was Googling where they played before and going, he won't play here. And then you're looking at it, you go, no, actually, he might. He might. So, you know, I think that the whole pyramid in England's benefiting slowly. I think it's slowly going to benefit. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there anyways. But cheers to everyone who's tuned in for us. There was a quick super chat. Let me just grab that before we get off. From Rana Khan, and there's also one here from Nikhil as well. Steve pointed out a great thing about sports history. It's always been about finding a counter to a popular trend to counter as many teams as possible. I think there's both. It's definitely a copycat league, but then there's also people that will literally go 180. Matt Simeone, for example, in Spain. Nikhil says, do you think it'd be a good idea for clubs to have an academy for managers, just like we do for players? In both Germany and Italy, there are proper manager courses. In England, it's a coaching course. And I think there's a massive distinction in that. The Italy one, you have to kind of do a dissertation. So they teach you every formation. That's why you see so many different formation variations coming out of Italy. They teach you every single formation. And then you have to write a dissertation. And they have, basically their FA, like I assume like St. George's Park, but I'm not sure. Where their FA is based, every manager that has graduated from their manager course has their dissertation put in a library. So you'll be able to go, if you can read Italian, and go and pull Antonio Conte's
Is this just in Italy or is it Germany as well?
That's what they do in Italy, but I know Germany has a manager course. I know Italy's manager course takes it levels further, and it's almost like doing a degree. But their like end dissertation, their final sort of essay that they write, they're publicly available. So you can go and find Vialli's managerial. You can find Zola's. You can find Conte's. Anyone who's done the manager course in Italy, you can go and, if you can read Italian, you can go and find. Cause I doubt they're translated. Like you can go and find what they thought. Like Conte's might be about why he prefers the three at the back. Like I think that's fascinating because it makes them have to do the work to understand what the fuck they're talking about. I think it's fascinating. Righty, I'm going to wrap it up there. But cheers to Ronaldo. Make sure to check out the link in the description. We're all lazy. Stop pretending you're not. Go buy someone a Manscaped for Christmas. The code XG20 will get you 25% off. And I think because of Black Friday, you might actually get 25% off as well. So go check that out right now. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.